Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be introducing a very special lady, and it's going to be a very special show. The key word for this show is special, because I just can't believe I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be talking to the wife of the horror director that most impacted my life. And you all know her as Christine Romero, the second wife of George A. Romero. And I'm having her on the podcast today to talk about his life and career. She was there for the best years of his career, for I think about 35 years, something like that, maybe even more or less. But she was there for a long time. And I'm having her on the show today to talk about his life and career, plug her upcoming appearance at Living Dead Weekend in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, and all that stuff. And I just can't wait. It's just the most tremendous honor of my life. So yeah, here is my new interview with Christine Forrest Romero. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Tommy. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, I hear you just fine.
Okay, great. I'm sorry I put you through asking who you were, but I got burned in the past by, an interview that wasn't legitimate, so I didn't know who you were.
I understand. One thing I have learned from doing this podcast is while horror is just wonderful, it also ruins a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, well, anyway, I apologize. So, I just wanted to make sure that you knew, that you weren't a crazy guy. And believe me, I've run into a lot of that, so.
I believe it. Well, it's such an honor, ma'am. I thank you so much for taking the time today.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. I just started. I've done 2 of these conventions, and I figured out I hesitated to ever do this stuff, and I went out and did the one, trying to get my son to come with me. He's a fantasy artist, and I thought that would be maybe it would be good for him to get out and about doing that stuff. But so far that's not working. But I had a good time, and I figured, it's fun. I'm enjoying doing it. So I'm going to do the one in June.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So, going back in time, before you met George, what was your trajectory that you were on?
Well, I was on a path I hoped to make it to Broadway. That was my dream in life. I was involved with theater from a child, and had intended when I graduated. Well, I did do it after I graduated college. I moved to New York, not knowing where the hell I would live or what I would do, or I had no money. Mm-hmm. And in those days, it's different than today. In those days, you just did stuff. You could believe it would all work out. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I was pursuing a theater path. Of course, it didn't happen. But anyway.
So you started out from the time you were very young in theater.
Yeah. And that was my love. And I loved, what I found out after I met George is working, I think partly why I loved theater was, you all, a group of people came together and with the same goal, and they worked hard to create it, the project, and it really, it just felt good. It felt good immersing myself in stuff. And I found that working on films, because I started working on, forget acting, I did a few little things, but I did a lot of backstage or behind-the-scenes stuff, casting, and assisting George a lot. And it's the same thing. I loved working on the project. It was very fulfilling. So I didn't miss not pursuing the theater route.
Yeah, I used to handle props backstage during
So,
theater.
it becomes a team, and everybody just, has the same goal, and, it's very satisfying.
Absolutely, it's a lot of fun. Are you originally from Pittsburgh?
Yes. Born and raised, North Hills girl.
Nice. So, how and when did you meet George?
Well, it's a kind of a crazy story. Let's see. I went to high school. I had a good friend in high school whose boyfriend worked for George. His name was Gary Steiner.
Mm-hmm.
And his big brother, Russ Steiner, was one of the original guys that worked on Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
And so Pam had called me when I was up in New York saying, hey, why don't you come home? They're doing this zombie film, and I'm sure you could be a zombie. And I was very stuck up and said, I would never be a zombie. Anyway, so I missed getting to meet him then. But then later, I think it was his third film, he actually shot my parents' house. And the reason for that was Gary was working on the project, and he was location scouting and needed a house with a lot of doors. And Pam said, oh, Chris's parents have a house with a lot of doors. So that's how they shot. It was Jack's wife, which I think was called Hungry Wives after that. So my mom and dad got to know George way before I did, and they all became great friends, and the whole neighborhood hung out and watched the shooting. It was a big deal. So when I came home one Christmas after that, I was working on making a voiceover demo tape, and my mother said, why don't you call George Romero? He has a mixing studio downtown. I'm sure he'd help you out. So I did that. And he was very nice to me, and we had a lovely visit. And he had said, I got this idea in mind to do a film. And if I can find the money, I think there's a part in it for you. And of course, telling that to a young actress, I was so excited. Well, it actually came about. That was Martin. And that was we did that together, and then we were together after that for like 29 years. So, long time.
Wow. Yeah. One of the things I've noticed about George and his career is that you get a sense of this when you see his movies. He had like a real sense of camaraderie and working with the same people over and over again.
Oh yeah, you see it. Totally. And those were our happy years, really. I mean, Martin was totally like that. We had a tiny crew, and everybody, it was like I'm talking about. It was like a theater event, and we all worked together around the clock. That went on for a long time. Night Riders, of course, was really like that. It started getting unlike that after Dark Cats. And things kind of started to change. But those early movies, it was really like that. It was really a great time period, a very joyful experience.
Yeah. So the first movie you did with him was Martin.
Yeah.
And I've talked to John Amplis about this movie. I think it's his most underrated early movie.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. It's interesting when it came out. We got a lot of attention nationally. I mean, Newsweek did a whole big feature on it, and Time Magazine. I mean, there's a lot of coverage, and we were all so excited, thinking, "Wow!" But the distributor never took it wide. He just played it in the tiny theater in the Village, and it was played for over a year down to Waverly. But you can't just play it one place and think it's going to make any money. But it got some lovely attention, and I always say John Amplis is a very talented guy. I mean, the camera really loved him. I was sure he'd have a big career. If that film were done today, he would have had a big career, But in those days, there was a lot of prejudice against horror and against George. I mean, the blood and guts was, the steak stuff, that was like a big no-no for a lot of general people.
Yeah, and I remember about 20 something years ago, I saw a documentary that there was a lot of people out there that are like Martin, who drink people's blood because they think they're vampires.
Really?
Oh yeah, and in fact, they used to put newspaper ads out, that they wanted to drink people's blood, and people would actually go.
Oh my God. Oh well, I'd rather not know about that. So
Yeah, I thought that was pretty scary.
yeah, it is. That's very unsettling.
But yeah, I think next to The Crazies, it's one of his most underrated movies from that early period.
Yeah, and in fact, that theme has been done. A lot of, what was that Dustin Hoffman movie that is almost a direct rip of The Crazies?
Uh,
A biochemical spill. I can't remember the name of it now.
oh,
But it was a good story and a great idea. And but George is always really ahead of his mind was always going ahead and stuff, and we never had the money to get the production value I think that movie could have done great and had more production value to it.
mm-hmm. I think you're talking about Outbreak.
Outbreak, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So then came Dawn of the Dead, and this is a very special movie to me because I saw let's see, I saw Dawn of the Dead when I was for the first time, maybe when I was about 19. Um, we had just moved into this apartment complex across the street from a video store, and my grandmother had just died, and I became so obsessed with the movie. I had always known about it because I see Night of the Living Dead a lot when I was a kid because it was in the public domain. It was always on late at night or something.
Yeah.
But Dawn of the Dead was just, I don't know, I just fell in love with it right away. It was just so fast paced yet so slow and so full of goofy stuff in it, and it's just like, to me, it's the quintessential zombie movie.
Well, it's funny. I just saw the movie again recently because George's partner Richard had it done in 3D. Have you seen that?
No. Somebody told me about it though.
It's interesting. I thought, why would they do that? But anyway, it really holds up, and it works great in 3D. I was really surprised. But, when I was looking at the movie again, I thought, oh, my God, the energy. I mean, there was so much energy in that film. And really what it was all about, everybody, I think back in those days, it was such a dedicated crew. And people, everybody put out 110%. I mean, that's why that film works, because it was a big concept and trying to, we used to have to go into the mall like at 10 o'clock at night when everyone was closed up. And that began our work day, and we'd work until like 6:30 in the morning when seniors would show up to walk the mall. But, so it was intense. And I'm telling you, people just worked so hard. People like Nini and Tasso Stavrakis and Mike Gornick, they were just fantastic. Everybody had ideas. Everybody was creative. And it was just it was a wild journey. And George was in really top form. He was confident and happy and had energy and, just was, he just let all his ideas out there. And somehow with Tom's help and Mike's help, he got it done.
Mm-hmm. What was the idea behind making Dawn of the Dead?
What do you mean the idea behind it? Why would he make it?
Yeah, like what was his idea that he was going to make it so comic booky and theatrical?
Oh, well, I think, that was just his vision. He wanted to make, he always wanted to make something about a comment about society. And at that time period, everybody's going to the mall. And, so he thought it was a good allegory for, life. And he also, George was a silly guy. He and I actually had a couple arguments because I thought he got too silly. some of the high fight stuff and all that I thought was like going over the top. But his whole thing was just over the edge and on every form. And as much as he liked being very graphic with the horror, he liked being very silly also. So, but we also had it. I'm trying to remember how the financing went on that. Richard Rubinstein was George's partner,
right?
And he met this guy Salah Hassanen, who was a big independent distributor and financier, and they were able to get this deal together for 3 movies. And so that's how we found them. And then Dario Argento got involved with Italy, bringing a chunk of the money from Italy. But so it all came together rather quickly too.
Mm-hmm.
So we just dove in. I mean, it was, again, I really think it was the time period. A lot of luck, a lot of right people at the right time. But it was totally a great. There was no look back on that. There's nothing bad happened. Everything was good and positive, and everyone had a great time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people recognized that he was trying to make a statement about the world in the 70s, both politically and socially, with Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
He
always tried to do that. He always tried to do that a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it shows in his work, But Dawn of the Dead is the one that probably gets the most written about in terms of that,
Yeah.
I told...
well, I think a lot of I think, he took when Night of the Dead came out, he took a lot of grief. Roger Ebert wrote the worst film he ever saw, stuff like that. And I remember Roger Ebert came back out. We had a screening at the Austin Film Festival, I think, in Texas. And Roger Ebert came out and introduced the film and apologized and said, I trashed that other movie and I re-looked at it, and it was great, and I think Dawn of the Dead is great. So he had a lot of people pushing for him, and it, again, I never forget when it opened in New York. Somebody rented a limo. We were all excited to be in a limo. We were driving up Broadway, and we saw a big line of people. Like, when I say a big line, like, a couple hundred people.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know what it was about. It was everybody lining up to go to see Dawn of the Dead. And somehow the word of mouth got out. And it had a really big release. A lot of people came out for it. And, in Europe, I remember in Germany and Japan, we did phenomenally well.
Yeah, it was like an international hit.
Yeah, which was, that was unusual for George,
Yeah.
Although he never saw any money from it. He never did.
Yeah.
But oh well.
I told Ken when I met him at a convention last year that, and he probably hears this a lot, that the last 5 minutes with him is just movie magic.
Well, they work well together, all those guys,
Mm-hmm. I never understood why, though, that the movie took 20 years to air on cable, because when I was a kid, Reanimator used to be on HBO a lot, and that was unrated.
Well, again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Richard controlled what happened on that. He still has all the control on Dawn of the Dead. Mm-hmm. So he's very careful about who he lets see it, or, it never, was never sold off to a big studio or anything. So that's why.
Mm-hmm. Then you guys did Night Riders, very interesting movie, I have to say. What was the genesis of that movie?
Well, again, going back to who George was, as much as he got known for horror and liked horror, he also was a real romantic and loved schmaltzy stuff. And he had an idea. I had not seen the Renaissance Fairs, but George had seen a couple of them and was very interested in that whole lifestyle of a troop of people living in, like in a commune situation, outside of the regular world. So, and then he thought, well, I can remember him saying, what if I took a motorcycle and put a put him in dressed the guy as a knight with a big weapon.
Mm-hmm.
He actually drew a picture of this and showed it to the Saul Hassan, who was the financial guy, and he said, I think I'd like to make a movie with this, using this image. And the guy said, okay, I'll finance it. And he hadn't written the script, he hadn't done anything.
Wow.
So, and again, it was the time. That would never happen today, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So, anyway, he went to my apartment, and I had a little apartment in New York, and he said, Chris, you go stay with your friend Sandy, and you let me sit here. And so, a week later, he came out with the Night Rider script. He just sat there and worked for a week. And he had the script. He never changed it much at all. And, it was, again, that was another film that was it was 97% shot outside. And we had terrible weather. We had tornadoes. I think the first week a tornado destroyed the set twice.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, but everybody, again, we still had that camaraderie, and everybody was still gung-ho and a lot of energy. So, it was like, we will make this film. Somehow we'll make this film. And I can't remember exactly, but let's say it was supposed to be shot in 50 days, and it took us like 97 or 100, and we were so over time. But everybody hung in. Somehow we got it done.
Wow.
It did not do well. I'm trying to think. A movie called Excalibur opened opposite it.
Yeah.
We got a lot of attention in the press, a lot of attention, a lot of big reviews and interesting reviews, but it just didn't do well. They kind of dumped it.
Yeah, I mean,
but I keep hoping that that's the film that will get really discovered. When I got these two conventions I've gone to, everybody is they all love Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and Creepshow.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while there'll be somebody with a Night Riders poster, but very rare.
Yeah. Oh my God. It seems like it was a dream project for George, and I had never seen it until about 15 years ago or something, and I had always known about Civil War reenactors, but not Camelot reenactors.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a cool idea, and again, because of the time, he was able to do just what he wanted. He did what he wanted. I mean, it was, that stuff hasn't happened so much anymore. I mean, but, he was able to make the movie he wanted to make and, go off. He fell in love with Brother Blue, who played Merlin, and he would let him go off in these rips. And he would just, anyway, I have nice memories of that movie.
Yeah, it's like Dawn of the Dead for Camelot. Very ambitious, fast but slow, and looked like it took a while to make, just like Dawn did.
Yeah, yeah.
How did George find Ed Harris?
Well, that's interesting. In those days, we did everything together. As I said, we didn't do anything formally. So most of the cast, both in Martin and Dawn of the Dead and Night Riders, were all either my friends or people I knew from, all the would-be actors working around or college friends. Anyway, I had gone to a friend of mine named Tom Tibby, who had just done a couple casting things in California. I said, we got to find somebody to play the king that has a lot of charisma.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Chris, I just saw this guy who was Ed Harris. And he said, he's been in one movie, I think it was called Borderline. He said, the guy he walks in a room, he's just dynamite. So I said, okay, can we meet him? So Kitty somehow got us in touch with Ed and came up to our hotel and walked in, and we just, in like a 15-minute discussion, we knew this was Billy the King. I mean, he was so riveting. I mean, it was I knew he was going to be a star right then. So anyway, that's how we found him.
Wow. Yeah, so you knew from the beginning that he was going to be a huge star.
Oh, he had such a quality. I mean, just hanging out with him. I mean, he was so magnetic. and so intense, you know. In fact, I don't think I feel that he could have done a lot more than he actually got to do. It's too bad. Even though he's done a lot of movies, I think he could have been a superstar.
Yeah. Then, of course, my favorite horror anthology movie, Creepshow. This was an independent project that Warner Brothers bought, right?
Yeah, that was also an amazing. And what happened? Let's see. I have to think back. We had sent Martin to what we packed up. I saw in some film magazine, Film Comment, I think, about some film festival that became Sundance, but it was called something else before that. I forget what it was. South Coast or South something. Anyway, I said, George, let's enter this film in the film festival. So we packed up the thing and entered the film, and it got screened. And even though it didn't win, it got a lot of attention. Somebody, a lot of Hollywood types were out there as judges, and somebody told Steve King about this film, Martin, that was so interesting. And I answered the phone one day. I also was a receptionist at things, and this guy says, "Can I speak to George Romero?" And I said, "Yes, who's calling?" He goes, "Yeah, Steve King." I said, "Steve King? You mean like Stephen King?" And, so anyway, they spoke, and Steve said we should meet. So George and I got in the car. We drove to Maine. It was in the summer, and we went to his house, and we had lunch. And over lunch, the two of them decided they loved DC comic books and that they should work together. And Steve said, "Well, listen, why don't I try to whip up something that we could shoot together?" And 1 month later, in the mail came Creepshow, and that's how that happened.
Do you think that Stephen King trusted George to make it an independent project before selling it to a major studio because he had bad experiences with movies like The Shining and stuff?
No, I think what I don't think anything was thought about that. I mean, we found I think I'm trying to remember. It was sold to Warner Brothers. They didn't finance it.
Yeah.
I think it was Solid that financed it. But no, I honestly don't think they were thinking about that. I think they just were, again, hey, let's go do this. I think it was before he even got burned as much as he got burned.
Yeah, as Tom Savini said, they made 5 movies in one.
Yeah, and you know what? That was also a great shoot. It was really fun. It's the first time we worked with quote stars, and every single person was nice, and they all enjoyed working with everybody because I think it was refreshing that there were just a lot of nice young people out there seriously doing their gig. And it was really fun movie. Nothing went wrong. It was just a great, great time, really.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I like the second one just as much.
Yeah, you know what? I can't even remember the second one. I have to say, was that Harrison did that, right?
Who?
Did John Harrison do that?
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think so. But
George didn't really have much to do with that. So.
He wrote a good script, though, I have to say.
Yeah.
Now, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just realizing I didn't even remember that George read that script.
Yeah. Now, Day of the Dead also holds a special place in my heart. It's my least favorite of the trilogy, but there's so much in it I like. I think some of Tom's best makeup is in that movie. It's like a lot more gruesome, less comic booky than Dawn. Everyone's performance is amazing, and I love that song at the end that Spudsy Sparacino sings. And I had him on the show, and I told him just how that song just warms my heart every time I hear it. It reminds me of my grandmother, again, from that same period,
Huh. Well, Day of the Dead, memories of Day of the Dead are, I don't know, not so great because our daughter Tina was born, I think right before George started shooting that. So I did the casting, but I wasn't on. I bring her out to the set, so I wasn't there as much as I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. But we shot in this mushroom mine,
yeah,
and it was cold and damp, and everybody was sick, and it was a gruesome shoot. It was very hard. So, for the first time, things were not. I don't know. I didn't. There was some people were getting sick, and there was a lot of infighting. It was the first movie that I think was not so much fun to make.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
In my opinion, Day of the Dead is George's last great movie, and I think after this movie, he kind of got demonetized by the studio system, and everything he made didn't quite live up to his vision. Is that right?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I thought Monkey Shines was that was a good movie, and was really, if you study that movie, God, all the stuff with the monkeys, he worked hard on that movie. That was a hard movie. Dark Half was a hard movie. And again, there was, he accomplished, I think they were both really good movies. I think, it's just too bad. It's too bad they didn't get a big release or do well, because I think his whole life would have been a lot different, but anyway.
Yeah, I've interviewed Britannia Alda a couple of times, and she tells me about the Dark Half and how difficult that was.
Yeah, it was not fun. It was, again, the studio was controlled, brought on Tony Fish Roberts to be the DP, and he and George did not hit it off. And, George would do things like say, I want a tight shot, or I want this or that, and then Tony would change the shot. And, George would, again, only because George knows he's the ultimate filmmaker. He knows everything about the medium. So he would catch him all the time doing this stuff. And it was, very much, it wasn't happy. In fact, he wasn't happy on Dark Half, and I think after that, I don't know, things just kind of, his career kind of took a big dive. And also, he got, I don't know how many people know this, but when we were in the cutting of Dark Half, we had to go to California. We were out there for almost a whole year. And Orion was in trouble then. Mm-hmm. And they kept, not wanting George to complete the film or making changes, blah, blah. So it was an intense time, and he actually blew out it. He was in a meeting, and his hearing, it was called sudden death syndrome. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, he heard a pop in his head, and he went deaf in one ear. And it left him with a roar in his ear that he had to learn to live with. But that, it was really a tough time.
Oh, wow.
And he did not get along with the studio, and so anyway.
Wow.
Kind of end of fun.
How did he get involved with Tales from the Dark Side?
Well, the way I remember that, I think it was George's idea. He wanted to do it, and then he and Richard disagreed. Richard wanted to really get into TV, and George didn't. He wanted just to make feature films and had kind of an attitude against TV. Again, when I look back on that, I think it was a huge mistake because George and Richard split up then, and George gave up almost all his rights to Tales of the Dark Side, which became an enormously successful project. Mm-hmm. Richard made lots of money, and George, I think he got $40,000 or something. So it was, I think, a big mistake. But, oh well.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of actors who worked on that show and stuff, and they say it was nothing but fun all the time. Who are some of George's directorial influences?
Uh, well, Hitchcock, I guess. He loved, all the Hitchcock movies. And, I don't know. Who did, he loved all the old movies. When he was trying to relax, he would watch Bridge Over the River Kwai or something like that. He liked all the big old Hollywood movies. But a direct influence, I don't think there's any specific person. He just loved movies. Apparently, when he was a kid, that's all he did. There would be a movie that would play for every day or something at the local place, and he'd go see it over and over again. He started trying to make his own movie when he was 12 years old and got arrested for throwing a dummy off the roof of the building where he lived. So he was just totally a movie nut from a kid.
Yeah, his style doesn't really seem to have any ancestors. It's very just original, you know?
And I think also his style came from working with no money because he would have to do a lot of shots. He couldn't afford to have multiple cameras or a big time period to shoot. So he'd have to do a lot of quick shots, and then he would know that he could fix it in the editing room and he could cut it together. He also had a photographic memory. He would spill a lot of film and get a lot of shots, and he could remember every single take. I did this, I got to take care of this top part of this take for work. Let's get to the second part of whatever, and that he just could do that.
Mm-hmm. So how did you find out about George's death?
Well, my daughter, maintained a tight relationship with him, and I knew he was very sick. And actually, he wanted me to come up to see him before he died, but his wife said, "But you can't cry." And I said, "Well, I don't know how I could do that." So I never saw him. But anyway, my daughter called me and said Dad had passed. So it was all sad,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't even been aware that you two were divorced until I had found out that he had died, because I still have the DVD for Dawn of the Dead where you two were on the commentary track, and when I listen to it, you two just sound very much in love.
Well, it was a great. I look back and I'm so happy for that. There was a time period where everything was just it was really special, and you live when you're in it. You don't realize how great you have it.
Yeah.
until it's no more. But I'd say all the way up until the dark half, we had a wonderful time together, and we were very much in love. It was very creative. I'll never regret it. And then things went south. I mean, to this day, I really am not quite sure what the hell happened. But oh well.
But it's
George got dark. He got very dark, and he got very bitter.
mm-hmm.
So and it was the movie business brought him down. I think as much as it was, it's great. It also, he just couldn't. After the dark half, he just couldn't get anything going.
Yeah,
and he got really frustrated by that, and angry, and oh well, it was sad.
It took a while, but he got to do 3 more Dead movies.
Yes, we split up after Land of the Dead, so I never actually have ever seen the other 2 movies he did.
I didn't think that they were that great, but I'm glad he got to do them because he got to fulfill, the rest of his career with that, I had heard rumors that there was going to be that there was going to be possibly be more, but it never got to happen, unfortunately.
Well, his health was not good. His health was not good on Land of the Dead. I mean, so I don't even know how the hell he was able to get it together for anything else. So.
Yeah. So now you started doing conventions.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I started doing it just, well, first of all, I was trying to get my son to do something, so I was doing it. And I realized, there's a lot of fans out there, and it's a happy time period, so why not. But I've been, trying to produce some stuff myself. I've had a project for a while now that I've been trying to get going called The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, the Steve King script. That it's just hard to get things going up right now, but we're trying.
I know the movie business is just so weird now. You make a movie, like very few people see it now. People take it to film festivals. Who knows how many people's watching it when it's being live streamed now.
No, it's just such a busy time. It's so. Forget it.
Yeah.
But so that's why I'm so happy that we got that time period. Because it was a year. When you're doing it, you don't realize how unique that was. But it was a pretty unique thing to be able to work outside the system and be able to make your own vision of something and get it done.
Yeah. And do you know how long Living Dead Weekend has been going on now?
No, I don't. I really don't know much. And I know. I shouldn't even comment. I have no idea. What surprises me is how many fans there are of those films. It's really incredible.
I know. I've been going to conventions for 3 years now, and I've just been amazed at how just movies that I thought nobody else in the world liked are popular, And I just found out about Living Dead Weekend a year ago and stuff. I'm trying to make a plan to go one of these days because I would just love it, especially the one at the mall.
Right. Well, that's the one that I'm going to do in June. I think it's the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And they've got, because it's Pittsburgh, I guess they have so many people that were involved that are still living in Pittsburgh that are coming out. So they got all kinds. Adrienne Barbeau's coming in, and Tom Atkins, and it should be a lot of fun. My friend Warner Shook, who was in several of the movies, is coming in. So it'll be a fun weekend.
Oh, that's just wonderful. I hope you have a great time there.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yes. Well, Christine, this was such an honor. I just can't tell you how wonderful I feel and that we got to share thoughts and memories about George and his wonderful movies. And I thank you so much, and I hope I get to meet you someday.
Yeah, me too. Thanks. I enjoyed it, Tom. Okay, take care.
You too. Have a great day.
All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Christine Forrest Romero. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Christine. I'm glad we could talk about George and his legacy and his movies. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes!